Hi, welcome to another video. I'm Sam Clift, and on this channel I do art tutorials and real life as a full-time artist. In this video I'm going to be talking about tabby fur, notoriously difficult, lots of different colours involved, lots of different textures. How do you make it not look muddy? How do you get all those layers in without mixing them all together and making it look a little bit strange? And how do you make it look soft and realistic? So I'll be talking you through the process and I hope you find it helpful. Starting as I always do with the base layer, either buff titanium or white, usually illuminance, because then you've got the option to slice if you need to. And then going in with a kind of neutral brown. The browns are really great in the polychromos. So this is a nugget because it's a really neutral one. So what I'm doing is I'm just mapping in where the stripes are, where the shadowed parts are, that part around the eye, a little bit around by the nose, and then obviously with the tabby you've got these lovely stripes that tend to follow a little bit of a pattern, and I'm just mapping those in just so that I know where they are. Above the eye there's an area that has more brown in it, especially next to the cream part, so I'm just mapping that in, and then I'm just going over the areas that have the tabby fur and just putting a very sparse light layer of the nugget or nougat just to map in where everything is. I'm going to go in with another layer of the nougat just to add a little bit more, and I'm leaving gaps in between the pencil strokes to make sure that you can see the lighter fur underneath. I think that's the key with tabby fur, is to have the multicolored textures, which means you've kind of got to leave gaps in between the fur to let every layer show through, and what you'll find is that it will naturally clump. So now I'm just outlining that lighter part. There's a triangle above the eye, there's a lighter part, and then the darker part around the nose. There is actually kind of like a creamy area, but what I'm doing is adding the pencil to the areas that are in shadow, so the darker areas, close to the eye, closer to the nose. Again, just mapping it in. If I need to walk away from this drawing, I'll know where to come back. And then moving up through the colours and adding a few more layers, especially into the stripes. I'm moving into the Van Dyke brown now, and you can see it's really darkening, but you need to move up through the layers of the different colours in order to have that lovely, luscious, thick fur. If you just go in with one colour, one layer, it will look very, very flat. So imagine those layers in fur when you put your hand on your animal, especially if you do have a tabby cat. If you just move the fur, you can see all of the different layers, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to add all of the layers with the colours. So moving into the area under the eye, again, I'm just going over, if there's any areas that are slightly darker, it just means I'm going over a couple more times, but I'm leaving the gaps in between. Don't forget to put the darker colours within the lighter areas too, just so they blend in nicely, and then working in another layer of the Van Dyke brown. I always want to say Dick Van Dyke. I was brought up with Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music. He's not even in The Sound of Music, is he? Don't know what I'm talking about here. Gone off on a tangent. But adding lots and lots of layers, and you'll find that you'll get these natural clumps, you'll get these natural patterns within the fur. Trying to be as random as possible. If you really try to add lines in or kind of gain the texture that's there, you'll tend to find that it will be a little bit too uniform, a little bit too groomed, and you want them to be random. So you'll find that lines will naturally occur, so don't worry too much about going in and making sure that they're there initially, because the more layers you add, the more likely it is that some of them will join together and you'll create these lovely textures and patterns within the fur that's naturally there, just as the fur does in real life. So going in and darkening up again, and moving on to the walnut brown, moving up through the browns. There's lots of lovely browns, the umber, the bister, the nugget, nougat, the Van Dyke, the walnut brown, and then eventually into the dark sepia. I'm going over the areas that need a little bit more darkening, and you can see there it's starting to clump together. I'm still keeping it quite sparse so that you can see the colours underneath. I don't want to lose all of those lovely layers, but I'm just making sure that I'm darkening up very, very carefully, tiny pencil strokes, going back and reversing the direction of the pencil so that it kind of goes under the lighter parts, because what you want is the thicker part of the pencil sometimes to be think about which direction it wants to be in. So that's the root of the hair. If you want the thick part to be going one way, then you start with the pencil that way. If you want it to go under lighter fur, then you can reverse that pencil stroke, and you'll find that the lighter part will go into, actually the finer part will go into the lighter hairs. Darkening up those shadows again, going in with the dark sepia and just making sure that I'm darkening up all around the eye. It's really relative, so until you've got the darkest parts in, you're not going to know how dark to go with your fur. And you can see I'm really going in and darkening now, using the eye as like a guide, and then adding the darker part under the lighter part to make it look like the animal's head is curved, because we want to create that form, creating something that's trying to look 3D on something that's 2D. So in that case, you need to really check your values, your lights and your darks, making sure they're as dark as they need to be to create that curve, and then going in and just darkening up, adding more texture. You can see some patterns forming, adding some more shadows into the darkest parts. It's quite dark underneath the eye, and then just going in with the cream, softening the pencil strokes, adding a little bit of warmth. It's a really nice mellow yellow, this one, and there was quite a lot of warmth in the cream fur. And I'm going over the top parts where this softens the pencil strokes. This builds up the layers, and it makes it look a lot softer, and yeah, not so kind of grainy. It really softens that. Going back in and adding some more of the dark sepia, keeping the gaps, and if it's lighter, if it's a lighter area as that part is, you need to add them even further apart. Going in with the dark sepia now and darkening up the stripes. At the moment they look a little bit too brown, a little bit too muted, so I'm going in and making sure that the shadows are there, in which case you need to go over a few times. Keep adding the dark colours within the light as well. Don't forget that, because you'll need it to blend together, otherwise you'll end up with an animal that's way too stripy and it doesn't really gel together. There you go, I'm adding the shadow within the lighter parts, even the cream. If you notice, there are some darker hairs within the light as well, so keep adding those, darkening up the shadows. I'm not going over the whole area and covering up all of the lovely colours I've already put down. I'm really being mindful about where I'm putting my pencil strokes, so especially in the shadows, especially at the root of these stripes. And you can see it looks a lot more natural, a lot softer, and then going in and shadowing up that area above the eye where there is quite a lot of brown, but we need to just darken it up slightly. And you can't really tell until you've got the other areas in. As you can see, I've done that stripe all the way down the eye. Going into the lighter area, there's still some dark within that too. So make sure you don't forget those areas. They are just as important. I hope you found this video helpful. If you'd like to see the full tutorial, it is available on my Patreon channel, where I talk you through the whole 11 hours, moment by moment, all of my choices. I talk as I draw, so you can listen to exactly what I'm thinking and why I'm picking certain colours, and the whole technique in real time. I will leave the link in the description below, and I really look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.